And our first guest with me in studio is Mr. Brian Altounian. He's the Chief Operating Officer of a company called Platinum Studios Incorporated, stock symbols PDOS. Brian, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Don. Thanks for having me.
Brian, I'm really interested in this interview. Platinum Studios describing itself as an entertainment company which controls an international library of more than 5,600 comic book characters, which you adapt for all forms of media, including print, film, advertising. Give us a general overview of the company.
Yeah, that's true. The company's been around for about 10 years, but the first 8 years of our existence was really kind of under the radar. We really were building up a large library of inventory, a large library of material. Very similar to like a technology company building up a patent portfolio. So we really were amassing this very large library, some of which we created internally, some of which we acquired the rights to from international libraries. And for the last 2 years, we started to embark on the exploitation phase of that library. So taking that material and now licensing it out to film and television opportunities, to merchandise and licensing, video games, and now online and digital space, obviously in print as well. Merchandise and apparel. It's a great, it's a great source of material for entertainment properties of all kind.
Well, it's fascinating because comic book characters have absolutely dominated Hollywood in 2008. Iron Man, the Hulk, Batman, together they've eclipsed $1 billion in box office, and it would appear that moviegoers are hungry for more.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing. Lately we've been saying, summer equals comic book movies, and not only the traditional superhero folks like the Iron Man and the Batman and the Spider-Mans, but we're also seeing things that are not necessarily superhero-based. Movies that were successful, like Wanted this year, that came out. Hellboy 2, which was a comic book-based movie. And historically, we've seen some great breakout hits, like 300 last year and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And the amazing thing is that people don't know that some movies actually came from comic books, but yet comic books represent basically the #2 source of material for entertainment properties in general. So things like History of Violence that came out a few years ago and Road to Perdition with Tom Hanks, those were based on comic books. Our history was really based, our founder and CEO, Scott Rosenberg, started his own publishing company years ago, which he eventually successfully sold to Marvel, but one of the comic books that he found was Men in Black. So people didn't realize that Men in Black was actually a comic book.
And I'm one of those that didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Now, thousands of people were in San Diego a couple of weekends ago for Comic-Con convention. What is it about comic books that's so popular right now?
The great thing about it is that San Diego Comic-Con has it's really become the youth culture event of the year. There were 125,000 people that attended Comic-Con last week. And right now what we're seeing is we're seeing game companies and obviously Hollywood studios and television executives that are going down there that really descend on San Diego. And again, the great thing about comic books as a source material for film and television is that comic books are franchisable opportunities. In other words, you rarely see a comic book movie that comes out that's just a part one. You'll see, in fact, we had Dark Knight, which is the 6th Batman movie that's come out. And the great thing about comic books as a universe is that, that universe is fairly malleable, and so you can do a lot of things with a comic book universe that transcends a traditional source material. So, Batman Begins, which was sort of the beginning of the story, was #5 in the series, and so right now we have Smallville on television, which is kind of an addendum to the whole Superman mythos. So that again is something that you can create and again fairly malleable, and you've got an audience that's built in that likes to come back and see what we're doing next with the character and the property.
It's really fascinating. Once again, Platinum Studios Incorporated, PDOS is the stock symbol. Our toll-free number, good from anywhere in the world, 888-259-4449 to get free information in the mail. Now, Brian, the company also sponsors a contest. You call it the Comic Book Challenge. It's an effort to go out and try to find new artists, new story writers. Tell us about that.
Right. Well, we're not a typical company in many fashions. We're not a typical comic book company. We definitely open the opportunity for new artists or for artists that have been previously unpublished. And one of the ways that we do that is through our annual contest, where we actually have creators submit their ideas to us. We pick the top 50, we put them up in front of a panel of judges, celebrity judges, and then they cull and find the best new comic book material has a possibility of becoming a published property, we then actually put it out to the internet audience to vote on. So it's a little bit of a pre-selecting a handful of winners, and then the internet audience gets to vote on the winner. In fact, we're judging next Saturday, August 9th, and then we'll be able to put the top 10 online, and people will be able to go to our comic book challenge site and be able to vote on what they think is the winning prize. And the winner will get a publishing deal. And the way that we look at intellectual property in our company is, again, not just going into print, but obviously all these other areas, into film and television, into the online space, into games, and into mobile phones, as an example, into apparel. So this is really an opportunity for a new artist to get a chance to have their material exposed on a much broader scale.
That's really exciting. Now, here's something that I'm kind of tickled about. We talked about this. You've just announced the acquisition of something called Wowio. They call it a leading online source of digital delivery of books and comics. The Wowio website's been counting down to a launch for weeks, and this countdown is going on right now. Let's look at the shot right now. This is just in a couple of minutes. We're pretty excited about carrying, is that while we're doing this interview, you're actually going to go live with it.
That's right.
Tell us about Wowio.
Well, Wowio is a great opportunity for Platinum Studios to extend beyond just, and when I say that, I don't mean to say that we're just an intellectual property company or just a comic book company. Again, we look at intellectual property and the exploitation of the material into various outlets. And we think that on a going forward basis, that digital distribution of content is really where entertainment companies are moving towards. Wowio represents one of those elements for us to step into digital distribution of content. Our content, as well as other providers of printed material. So not only do we have other comic book companies that are putting their material up for downloads, but we have traditional book publishers, we have textbook publishers, and we're opening up categories to magazines. So if you can imagine being able to download any kind of printed material to any device that you have, stored in a digital library, and have access to it, in many cases for free. Some will be sponsored downloads, so you're really getting access to great classics and to great material, again, that may not go through the traditional publishing routes, but have the opportunity to be downloaded online and stored digitally. It's really kind of a twist on the iTunes model for music, where in iTunes they a little bit restrict a little bit of the activity of how you can access that music material. For us, Wowio allows you to store your reading material digitally and access it from any device and any kind of computer.
That is